Good evening. I call this meeting of the Standing Committee on Finance of the Brockton City Council to order. It's Tuesday, January 16, 2023. Madam Clerk, please read the first item.
1, ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $267,600 from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, FY 2023 Massachusetts Municipal Public Safety Staffing Grant to the Brockton Fire Department, FY 2023 Massachusetts Municipal Public Safety Staffing Grant Fund. These grant funds will be used for overtime necessary to maintain staffing levels. There is no match requirement for this grant. Invited Brian Nardelli, Fire Chief, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening, Chief Nardelli.
Good evening, Madam Chairperson, and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Nice to see you up there.
Thank you.
Not that it wasn't nice to see Jack.
Tell me how you really feel, Chief.
Yeah. Good evening, councilors. How are you? So this is a grant that we've received over the last several years, probably, I think 7 years we've received this grant. Different amounts have gone to different departments over the years. This year we've been stagnant at $250,000 for the last couple of years. This year they went up to $267,600. I think more to qualifications. They may have had some more money they put into it. We were really not privy to that information. This grant is a grant that we begin to use usually in the summer months, usually not until after July 1st. What this allows us to do is maintain our upstaffing where we are in the winter months. It's a nice treat from the state government to be able to give us so that with the monies that you allocate for our overtime for the fiscal year, how we have to do our staffing and maintain our staffing throughout the year, our obviously more vacations in the summertime, which that then in turn makes our staffing numbers on site a little bit lower. What this does is this allows us to continue and keep that up. It usually takes, we're usually through this staffing grant, usually by the middle to end of August. With the amount of money it actually creates, I did a little bit of math here, we can usually cover about 368 shifts is what that covers. That could be, close to, potentially certain times of the summer, that could be upwards of 40 to 50 shifts in a week, and then it could start to wave off towards the end. But it does allow us to keep us as we come in from the winter and the spring so that we don't burn all that money out, or when we get that new money in July, we don't have to conserve it. It allows us to stay about status quo. This has been instrumental in the last number of years, and it's really been a game changer for us. So I hope that you look upon it favorably. Right now, we do have a considerable amount still of monies in our allotted money for staffing, fire apparatus, and also our regular overtime. And much better than we were last year. We've been able to combat some of the injury leave issues. We haven't seen the presence of COVID, although it has bumped up on us in the last couple of weeks. But we're in good shape right now with those monies, and hopefully we'll be able to hold off with this money until the summertime to be able to use it.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
You're welcome. Step back and step back up again.
2, that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $41,584 from Commonwealth of Mass Department of Fire Services 2023 Firefighter Safety Equipment Grant. The Brockton Fire Department 2023 Firefighter Safety Equipment Grant Fund. These grant funds will be used to purchase equipment to combat the ever-increasing fires and fire potential from lithium-ion batteries. There's no match required for this grant.
Good evening again. This is a grant that we applied for the first time last year, and I'm not sure if you remember me coming to you last year. Last year we received $50,000. I don't, every department, every chief of department that I've spoken to, not just in the Plymouth County area, but also throughout parts of the Commonwealth, did not get the exact allotted amount that they actually asked for. We, because of our demographics and our population, can qualify for up to $50,000. This year, we got the $41,000 and change that you're seeing in front of you tonight. This grant last year was incredible because our aging thermal images were starting to wane, and we were having to purchase new ones. We were able to replace all of them last year. So what is this going to do for us this year? If you notice, as part of your packet that I know the auditor has passed out to you, is a list of goods that we will be purchasing. One of the ever-increasing problems we've been running into in the fire service has been lithium-ion batteries, and the proliferation of fires with these was evident just a couple of weeks ago when we had a 3-alarm fire on Bartlett Street. This, quite honestly, was a fire that was handled very quickly, but because of the volatile nature of some of these batteries that now had been damaged in the fire as we were getting them out, continued to have what's called a thermal run and continued. To just back up a little bit, I was able to send through the mayor's piece in the budget this year, along with the CFO, we were able to get some education components placed into the budget for this fiscal year. And what ended up happening was I was able to send 2 of our deputy chiefs, Deputy Chief Kevin Gallagher and Deputy Chief Jeff Marchetti, to a class at The Rock, which is the firefighter training grounds for the FDNY, just off of the island of Manhattan. The FDNY is handling 40-plus lithium-ion battery incidents a day throughout all 5 boroughs. That isn't necessarily all fires, but incidents that occur that are detrimental to the health and safety of all personnel that are in those buildings, including the firefighters that are going there. You can look up on any YouTube video lithium-ion battery fires, and it is quite extensive. It almost, to be graphic, but so you understand, what is happening is the batteries, I was just talking to Councilor Fowler about this, the batteries are very stable in their life. Just like anything else, it's when you damage that something or part of it that we end up running into problems. Take your cell phone, for instance. Your cell phone, you don't want to go to the Apple store and spend $80 on a new charger, so just like the rest of us, you'll go to Cumberland Farms and grab a quick knockoff. Well, that's not that bad because Apple has devices built into that to basically shut down that charging if it gets too hot. A lot of times what happens, though, you go to a store to buy a battery that says it's compatible with Milwaukee's or DeWalt's or whatever the case may be, they might not have that same shut-off mechanism in the charging that you're purchasing when you buy that actual Milwaukee or DeWalt. That, not to mention, and I'm the first one to probably do, not the first one, but one of many that does this, when you're using a screw gun at your house, putting something in, and it gets a little sideways on you, you whack it with the back of the screw gun to get it back into place, and what's on the back of that screw gun? That's where the battery is. So you're inevitably somewhat damaging that battery every time you whack it. What you see on this list in front of you is a number of different things that are going to help us in combating that. This fire on Bartlett Street last week, we had to get them out, get them in a barrel of water. The instance with this, our thermal imaging cameras, that's why I brought them up earlier, it was just regular garden variety water. We were able to put a thermal image on it within a half an hour, and that water had already warmed up significantly, and the barrels were bubbling. How do we combat this? I was talking to Councilor Fowle about this. I think education. I think one of the things that's out there, we've looked at working with the Marshal's Office. We want the Marshal's Office to take the lead so we're not going it alone on this and putting out our own information. But we know how to combat and how to take care of these fires. For the most part right now, it's constant cooling and constant water. And that's what all the list of items are that are on here that we would be purchasing. Although we got reduced by our number by about $9,000, there's a couple of meters that would be doing atmospheric monitoring that we could probably reduce so we could get to the actual number and it wouldn't come out of our budget. But that's about where I'd be more than happy to take any questions on that.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Yeah, just on the motion, colleagues, when I was speaking with the chief, it may be that we need to take a look at our ordinances about lithium-ion batteries, charging of them, storage of them, businesses that are involved in them, because they can cause a very serious fire. You mentioned something, I think, on, was it Bartlett Street?
Bartlett Street, correct.
I don't know if you just want to take a minute to just quickly give the councilors an overview on that one.
So yes, this was a fire in a basement. We had 40-plus batteries. The gentleman was, charging in the basement, a couple of scooters, a couple of e-bikes. And what had happened now is the fire had begun through the charging mechanism, damaged the other batteries, but through the proliferation of how this runs, when you take a battery, you could have 40 or 50 small cells of these batteries, of the battery cells in the actual battery, and these things go everywhere, so it spreads the fire. When these break apart, if you look at them, if you look at any of the videos online, you're able to see it's almost like a propane release. This stuff spreads so quickly. There is a video where a gentleman was burned very badly. It's one of the videos you come across if you look him up with a Christmas tree. This gentleman was burned very badly and was in the hospital for quite a long time because he inhaled the flaming gas as it came off of the battery. So these are an ever-present danger. Those are the one part of it. If you notice on a couple of those items we're going to purchase, it's a glass blanket that goes over an electrified vehicle. If you go back to July over in Norwell at the Tesla dealership, they actually had a fire there. They went back 8 times within probably about 24 hours to put that car back out because they continue to make noises and they continue to off gas and they continue to do a number of things. If you remember, there was a car, and not to get off the Bartlett portion, but if you remember, there was a car that drove into a building at the corner of Belmont and Belcher. It was Christmas Eve morning. And the first thing when I heard, I was very early, I was up drinking a cup of coffee, and I actually heard the call go out, and they said something about electrified vehicle, and they were already on it to make sure when the tow company came and picked up that vehicle, it was going to be segregated at the lot away from other vehicles in case there was an issue with it. And from what I understand, it was making multiple noises about 72 hours later. This is an interesting dynamic that, again, like everything else, and I'll promote my department shamelessly, constantly, but firefighters are the ones that are called to do this. And I think that's the important part to remember. And I think when we're called, we show up and we're going to figure out a solution. And this is what the solutions the fire service throughout the country has come upon. So Bartlett Street, where we should have had a basic basement fire, ended up at a 3-alarm fire that we were at for probably about 12 hours, making sure we had everything saturated. We should have been out of there in 3 hours. But there's components at play there that are concerning.
Thank you, and I'm sure we'll all work with you if there are things that need to be
Absolutely.
done at the local level, so.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you.
Councilor Minicello?
Good evening, Chief Nardelli. Can I ask a question?
Yes, on the motion?
Yes, thank you. How are you?
How are you?
Good, good. Over at the high school, we had, and I don't know if we still use them, but the GEM cars, the golf carts, battery operated. Are they still in use, and is there any issues with regard to storing them and the batteries that go with them, and do we check them out, or?
So that would be hard to say. I think that, if I'm not mistaken, I've seen them. I don't know if they're absolutely still in use. I've seen them over the last few years. Again, as long as a lot of this stuff is, as long as it's being charged appropriately with the appropriate chargers, the batteries are checked. That's the thing with the fire service. We don't know a lot about the actual cars themselves. You'd need a technician to look at them. But as long as they're being charged appropriately, these batteries off gas. We had an incident a number of years ago at the Brockton Country Club where we went there for an alarm ringing, and we ended up having an issue with one of the carts off-gassing in there. And this had probably been happening for a couple of years. And while it was off-gassing, it was letting noxious fumes into the building. But it was over the weekend. It was like late on a Sunday. No one was there for a while. But there is always that potential. I think they need to have a technician probably look at it to really diagnose if there's a problem.
Seems to be a lack of familiarity, with regard to batteries and battery-operated vehicles and things. People want to say, oh, great, it's a battery-operated this or that. But there is, there is some fire hazards that go with this.
Absolutely, no question.
And for people to install charging units, I guess, in their garages and stuff, that's great. But when one of those things catches on fire, it's a hot fire.
Of course it is.
It is, like you said, it is hard to put out. And whatever building that vehicle is in, if it's in someone's garage, that thing is going.
Yep.
It's in my humble opinion, from what I've seen in terms of the way these things melt down.
One of the concerns is the technology outrunning our ability to take care of these problems. And I think we're seeing this with everything in the world, but lithium-ion batteries, one of the things we used to have old NiCad batteries when I first got on the department, and we got rid of our whole battery establishment. We just went to old gasoline and oil and this, that, the other thing. Now the lithium-ion has made us be able to actually recharge and take care of these batteries, and they last a lot longer, and we've gone back into it. But again, the technology is outpacing what we can do emergently to take care of some problems. So we're unfortunately having to really work with engineers to make this up as we go.
I guess what I would suggest is if the fire department comes across any type of a informational flyer or information that perhaps the public might benefit from in terms of, having these devices, having vehicles, having, the lawnmower that now is the battery-operated lawnmower, the weed whacker that's now the weed whacker with the battery. I mean, people love to feel good about, I'm gone green. And that's wonderful. And we all want clean air and things, but we also all want to be aware of what could be the downside to these things. When do you need to get rid of this thing? Or what do you need to do to make sure that your home or your shed or your what have you is not going to go up in flames because of something that we don't know with regard to these batteries? It's
No question.
so
I
think we're all in a learning curve with this stuff. How long does a Tesla battery last? I don't have the answer. No one seems to give you a straight answer. Whatever. But, you see the point. If you come across information that will help us all in the community, we need to know about it because this is the wave of the future, but we want to go in the future safely and not have our homes burning down and our businesses burning down because of some stupidity, So,
No question.
okay, thank you very much. It was good to talk to you.
Councilor D'Agostino?
On the motion, sorry, just kind of along the same lines of what Councilor Minicello was saying, I was just thinking, so when you approach, say, a house fire, I mean, for all you know, I have a basement garage. For all you know, I've got 2 Teslas sitting in there with lithium-ion batteries in there just waiting. I mean,
We don't know.
that's really scary. These are such a, I mean, I know there's other things that make your jobs very difficult as well, but these seem to be such a huge hazard for
Growing threats every day. And, there'll probably be something new before I retire on top of this. We'll get a handle on this one, then there'll be another one. And and this is why I joined the fire service 27 years ago, because when people call, we show up and we make things better.
Lithium batteries.
Wow.
Scary.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's just
It is.
scary that you could walk in, start to do your job of trying to put the fire out and have no idea that, down in a basement garage or what have you, this is sitting there just, potentially going to become an issue and really change things. And so 3 hours turned into 12 hours because
11 and change, yeah.
But-
I rounded up,
because of the batteries being present.
Yep.
Wow.
That becomes an issue. And this is what you're hearing from fire service professionals all over the country. I have my FCAM education conference coming up in the end of February out in Worcester, and one of the speakers there is someone from El Paso, Texas, that's dealt with a number of these and how they're combating them in a different part of the country.
Well, and hopefully anyone who hears this knows that if you guys ever unfortunately have to go to their home for a fire to tell you, hey, by the way, this is what I've got in there you might want to be aware of.
It would be nice.
So, well, thank you. Thank you
you.
very much for everything you guys do and for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Councilors, a motion to recommend favorably
Second.
has been properly made and seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Oh, I'm in favor. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you again, councilors.
Good night.
Appreciate it.
3, ordered that the city council authorizes the acceptance and expenditures of the total grant funds in the amount of $213,485 from the Brockton Neighborhood Health Center and Atlantic Hill Nursing and Wellness Incorporated, FY 2023 Expanding COVID-19 Vaccination Grant. To the Mayor's Office, FY 2023 Expanding COVID-19 Vaccination Grant Fund. This grant will be used to vaccinate the community and do outreach and educate about the COVID vaccine. Invited, Robert Sullivan, Mayor, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening, Mr. Clarkson.
Good evening, Madam Chairman. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Also, good evening, Madam Acting Mayor. As you all know, Mayor Sullivan is in Washington, D.C. at the Mayor's Conference. I'm happy to address this issue for you. Thank you for your indulgence in accepting this as a late file at your last meeting. Since that meeting, we've continued discussions with the Brockton Neighborhood Health Center and the Atlantic Hill Nursing and Wellness, Inc. That's a group of nurses who have done work for Brockton Neighborhood Health and the city for quite some time during the pandemic. They have recently incorporated as a company. So since our discussions about accepting this grant, we have played an advisory role, and the best contractual arrangement would actually be for Brockton Neighborhood Health to directly contract with these nurses in this company to provide the vaccines. So the work will be identical. Vaccines will get in people's arms here in Brockton. As the local government and as the local public health agency, we will interact with and provide support on those activities. But at this point, it doesn't seem necessary to involve the city in the acceptance of the grant because the money will go directly to the nurses. So given that, I would ask that at this time you table this request.
Motion to table.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
4, ordered that the city council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $230,940 from the Executive Office of Elder Affairs FY23 Formula Grant. These grant funds, to Council of Aging FY23 Formula Grant Fund. These grant funds will be dispersed in the following manner: salaries, including overtime, energy, department equipment repair, printing, office supplies, registration, memberships, and subscriptions. Invited, Janice Fitzgerald, Director of Council on Aging, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Before you begin, Mrs. Fitzgerald, I just wanted to say to the people at home that all of the matters that have come in front of the Finance Committee so far this evening have been recommended favorably. We've all voted to recommend them favorably, and I should have said that. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Good evening, councilors. Good evening, Madam President, and congratulations. Here I am again, back before you for the acceptance of the formula grant funds. As predicted, our numbers of older adults have increased significantly in the city. We've gone from over 15,883 to well over 19,000. So that's exciting news. That means people are living longer, they're staying in the city, and financially that gives us another chunk of change for the Council on Aging. So knowing that the numbers were going to increase like that, we have engaged UMass Boston to conduct a needs assessment in the community. The assessment was opened on the 17th, and I'm asking all you councilors to please get word out in your wards. The survey itself is available online at the Council on Aging, the Cape Verdean Association, Haitian Community Partners, all the housing sites. So we've really blasted it out there so that we can get a good return rate on this survey. We want to know what the needs are in the community and what our older adults are looking for programs and services. So any help you can give us would be greatly appreciated. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
5, ordered that the city council authorize the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $150,000 from Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, 2022 Southeast New England Program, NSEP grant, to the Department of Planning and Economic Development, 2022 Southeast New England Program, NSEP grant fund. These grant funds will be used to study nature-based solutions to reduce flooding on Trout Brook and the Salisbury Plain River. There is a local match of $50,000 required. Invited Rob May, Director of Planning and Economic Development, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening, Mr. May.
Good evening, Council President, councilors. You may remember that I was here in 2022, December, I believe, maybe November, I can't remember, I'm sorry, where we were discussing an MVP grant, and we talked about how we had another grant lined up to be its match. This is that grant that we're talking about. It's the Southern New England program that US EPA runs through the American Estuaries Association, our council. The SNEEP grant here is to prepare a feasibility study for the recreation of wetlands along Trout Brook in the area of the CSX rail yards. I had distributed via email some maps for you. I've also printed them out and have them available at your desks. Unfortunately, our large format printer was not working this evening when I tried to print these off in big scale, but I'm hoping that you'll be able to get enough information from this application and application package. Thank you.
Motion to recommend favorably.
On the motion.
Is it seconded?
Second.
Thank you. On the motion, Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Good evening, Mr. May.
Good evening, sir.
So on this SNEP grant, now this is essentially to put together a 30% design on nature-based solutions to prevent flooding in a certain section of Trout Brook. Is that correct?
Yes, it would, and it would potentially alleviate flooding in the neighborhood immediately adjacent to Trout Brook, and then further downstream.
And you previously mentioned that we last year received an MVP grant, kind of for the same area. Can you tell me how will those two grants work together to help develop Trout Brook?
You'll see from one of the maps called Project Location, it shows the areas that are going to be addressed and analyzed under each of the grants. The MVP grant is to the south. It's primarily between Court and Center Street, although it does stretch a little bit further north along the edge of the river. And the MVP grant is more within the confines of the CSX yards. How this supports the redevelopment of Trout Brook, first of all, in our plan, we call for creating a new flood, I don't want to call it a flood wall, but it's a levee along Trout Brook that will prevent flooding on the east side of the brook going towards, is it Manchester Street, McAllister Street? I'm sorry.
East side, you're looking at Peckham and working your way down to Manchester, Tabor.
I was right, Manchester, yes, in that area. And then raising the sidewalk along Plymouth that will prevent flooding on the west side of Trout Brook, which gets into the area between Plymouth and Commercial Street where the BAT bus facility is. So those industrial buildings that are adjacent to the BAT are subject to, are within the flood zone also. So how this continues to support that is that we will take pieces of property out of the flood zone, which makes them more valuable for the property owners who are there, especially the residents, would recoup or see some great benefit to being out of the flood zone. The improvements along Trout Brook would also keep some other industrial properties out of the flood zone. And it kind of opens the way, if we have a solid plan and the data supports what we think it'll support, we have an opportunity to then apply for additional funds, which would allow us to offset any property acquisitions that the Brockton Redevelopment Authority is looking at as their request for qualifications is scheduled to go out the 1st of February.
Great, so this will do two things simultaneously, address some of the flooding issues in the area along Trout Brook, both industrial and residential, and also help prepare the land for future economic development. So we appreciate your, you looking for this type of funding, these types of grants, and I'm glad that this is a foundation for future grants in this area, both for the brook itself and for the economic development around the brook. So again, we appreciate efforts in this matter. Thank you, Mr. May.
Thank you. Councilor Farwell? I'm sorry, forgive me. Councilor Rodriguez, oh, goodness.
I'm on the left side now, that's what the problem
You're
is.
right, you are.
Yeah. Good evening, Mr. May.
Good evening, sir.
Has the city taken ownership or is in discussions, serious discussions with CSX in terms of the ownership of this property?
The mayor and I believe Mr. Clarkson participated in a conversation to begin discussions with CSX to judge their interests. They were interested in, or would accept an offer from the city, or would be interested in seeing an offer from the city. And right now, the Brockton Redevelopment Authority and my office have been working with Mass Development on a site readiness grant that is and has prepared a request for qualifications and interest that the Brockton Redevelopment Authority would like to put out. What we're trying to find is a major developer who would buy the CSX property and the area around it. It's anticipated, though, that since CSX is such a difficult landowner to deal with in negotiation, that there is a possibility that the Redevelopment Authority would have to be the acquiring partner or the acquiring entity. This we would, of course, be looking, the Redevelopment Authority, excuse me, would look at that development partner to buy the land from the BRA and we would also work with some, work to try to secure some financing from the Mass Development or the Commonwealth to further support this acquisition. I'm sorry I'm not very eloquent tonight.
The fear that I have is that we are spending government funds. And I know it's grants, we're talking about applying for grants, getting grants, and we're here discussing doing some things. I mean, this is a beautiful rendition of what the place would look like, but it's almost like somebody planning to buy a home, go on vacation in hopes of winning the lottery. You know, I'll do all of those if I win the lottery, but this is exactly how it's been. I've been living in this city for 40-plus years, and that place has looked and continues to look the way it is 40 years ago as it is today, basically. And the issue that I have is that the average citizen is put in a position of either cleaning their homes, cleaning their yards, losing their homes in some ways. But yet here's CSX that has absolutely no plan to do anything with a piece of land in the middle of our city, and yet somehow we're in discussions with them. I mean, I remember 6 months ago we had a business owner who was brought here in front of the council because his property had caught fire on Main Street, and we were giving him X, Y. As a matter of fact, we were just going to tear down his property because it was just a blight on Main Street. But yet CSX continues to be a major blight in this city, pay the city absolutely no taxes because they don't pay taxes, and yet we have no recourse to deal with these individuals in a more forceful way to say put up or shut up. But yet how do we basically go back to the community and say, oh, by the way, see that building of yours, you need to fix that up, otherwise we're going to take that. So why can't we do that with CSX?
I really wish we had that option. Unfortunately, for over 160 years, the railroads have been immune from eminent domain and from any real actions. The city has caused them to clean up that property over time with removing debris and brush and the encampments that have been in there. You know, we have those powers and authorities, and I think the city is using those appropriately. We haven't seen much dumping in that area in a while. You know, we need to have a solid plan and a solid partner in order to move forward with redeveloping what is the largest undeveloped piece of property in the city other than the fairgrounds. And as you said, this property is paying zero property tax. Railroads don't pay taxes at all. And so we've developed a very sound strategy, working with mass development, working with the Commonwealth, to line up the pieces that we can see this property redevelop, creating jobs, creating economic value for the city, improving the environment, and creating a way to knit these two environmental justice neighborhoods together that have been separated for over 60, 70 years that the rail yard has been there.
But I find it frustrating that if this particular piece of property was located in Newton, in Wesley, in some of these other more affluent communities in Massachusetts, we wouldn't be here talking about this. So I find it somehow even disrespectful in a way that they do nothing with that piece of property, and they have done nothing with that piece of property. And we continue to go after grants to try to beautify the place, try to pick it up, try to clean it up. It's not the city's responsibility to clean up the homeless population that we cleaned up several years ago. It's private property basically owned by CSX. So we continue to put resources into a piece of property that chances are, the way it's been going, another 40 or 50 years we'll still be in the same situation that it's in because, again, it's Brockton. Let's just dump on Brockton because we continue to dump on Brockton because we don't have what it takes to basically take on some of these individuals. Organizations or whatever. And I think we need to, to lace up our boots and go after them in some ways. We've got a law department. Why isn't anybody writing some sort of a forceful letter to CSX saying, you do this or we're going to take you to court to do it? There's no law that says we can't. In this country, anybody can sue anybody for anything. So why are we not taking those kinds of steps, knowing that this is holding some major development? I can understand if it was in the outskirts of the city, okay, so be it. But it's in the middle of our city, in the centerpiece, center core of our city, and yet we keep coming back with all these little projects to say, well, let's patch it up because chances are, maybe someday they'll decide to do something with it because nobody's pushing them to do any of this stuff.
The mayor met with Mass Development not too long ago and the CFO, and we had a presentation from Mass Development. I don't think the city has ever been closer and more prepared to move this project forward than we are now. And I think this is something that we really need to move forward on. And so I would hope that the Redevelopment Authority, whose board approved the RFP last meeting, and I believe is available to you. I was told that the chairman of the Redevelopment Authority was going to be distributing that to you. And if not, I can get you a copy of that.
No, I don't want to go any longer because, my issue here is with CSX. How can you put out an RFP or put out any sort of project for a piece of property that we don't own? That's what my concern is.
Well, the RFP is to find a developer to partner with us to go forward with CSX to acquire this piece of property.
But is CSX even entertaining this? That's
Yes,
what I'm
they
trying to
would.
say. You think that they are?
Yes, they said if we had an offer, they would entertain it.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. May, it was the BRA approved an RFIQ,
Yes.
and I did obtain it from Dr. Jackson and distributed
good.
it to all the counselors.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Madam President, excuse me.
Counselor Farwell.
I just have a couple of questions for Mr.
Yes, sir.
Claxon, nothing for
Oh,
Mr. May.
thank you.
Mr. Claxon, I know you meet with the mayor regularly. Is there a single piece of paper, a document, an email that originated from CSX to the city that says, yes, we will entertain an offer from the city at some identifiable price? I mean, if there is, it's a public record. So do you know of any document that we have ever received, to your knowledge, saying CSX will partner with the city and try to negotiate the sale of that property?
There may be, I'm hearing Rob say yes, I am not aware of one, but we will, we can certainly endeavor to find one and get it to you.
All right, the other, and this is unfair of you, because neither one of you are hydrologists and nor are you lawyers, but we will, in order to conduct a study about nature-based solutions, we will have to have permission from CSX to go on their property. Is that correct?
Sure.
Do you know if that permission has ever been requested or granted?
I have not been involved in those discussions, but I'm sure Mr. May could answer that. I can answer the larger question about acquisition and the RFIQ. From my professional perspective, I think an option that brings a private developer to the table and leverages their funding sources and their money to redevelop this property is a far better solution, and one that other municipalities are using to look at large tracts of land within the municipalities to try to encourage public-private partnerships and then, as a result, save the municipalities from the expense. It's an option that we may or may not look at for other large tracts in the city, including the fairgrounds. So I think that option presents us with the ability to see what the interest may be out there without putting that financial burden of acquisition on the city.
Well, you mentioned the fairground, so for my colleagues, and I would ask just a little leeway from the chair, if I were going to study a large tract of land, I would be looking at the fairgrounds. I think you have 50 acres of land up there. Belmont Street is the new Main Street. You don't have swampland. You don't have contaminants, to the best of my ability. You have a golden opportunity to put senior housing village up there, an international village with restaurants and shops, a state-of-the-art athletic stadium using the center area where they used to have demolition derbies. If we're chasing mass development for money, and it's for Trout Brook, I hope there is a corresponding effort to chase money to study the feasibility of obtaining that large tract of land. That truly is the last large piece of land in this city that would be available for very significant development. It's located in an area close to Route 24. It's already serviced by a number of other roadways, and Mr. Clarkson is quite right. Chase mass development for Trout Brook, but for God's sakes, I hope we're smart enough in this city to also expand from there. As my colleague, Councilor Rodriguez, would say, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. You know, let's not just confine our efforts to Trout Brook. Let's expand our efforts. Let's broaden our vision and see what we can do for the city. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I will vote favorably in this. Let's see what they do with the money, and sometimes I'm surprised.
You're welcome. Counselor D'Agostino, followed by Counselor Lally.
Thank you. A couple of things. So one of my colleagues actually has answered this for me, but I thought for anybody who's watching, they may, and I don't think you said it, so I'm going to ask it for the benefit of anybody who might watch later. There's a match required for this grant.
Yes, sir.
And can you talk about how that, I mean, the city's not covering that.
No, the city is not. We had prepared just in case that this didn't work out. We do get have a regular line item for DIF, District Improvement Financing, Massachusetts 40Q, Chapter 40Q, where we're reinvesting in economic development projects. We were fortunate to be able to work with, this is an EPA federal grant. We have a state grant in the same area. There is some scope overlap, and so the two grants match each other. And so we're not putting any of our own money forward.
Basically, the match requirement is being met by the MVP
Yes, sir.
action grant we already did just, what, a month or two ago?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, good. No, I think that's important for people to know that part of it. And then the other thing that comes up, and maybe it's like, I don't know if it's slightly, I don't think it's slightly off topic, but is the email that went around and the discussion about purchasing the CSX property. And I don't think I heard it said here tonight, so if it was, I apologize for repeating something, but it's an old railroad property. I'm sure there's some unsavory, unpleasant things in the ground there. If the city acquires that, obviously we have some exposure.
If the BRA acquires it, the BRA potentially has some exposure. There's also, there are other opportunities to create LLCs as holding entities that would keep any liability away from the city. We are in the process of applying for a US EPA assessment grant. Actually, we have applied for a US EPA assessment grant that, should we be notified this fall that we have that fund, if we, at that point, the redevelopment authority has a development partner in hand, we would be able to make a, and they were negotiating with CSX at that point. We, the city, would then step in and assist the BRA in preparing additional environmental assessment of that area. Once we have it completely assessed, and CSX and Brockton Iron and Steel have done a lot of environmental investigation and remediation so far. There's a little bit more that needs to be done. We also, there are also new US EPA brownfields grants under the bipartisan infrastructure legislation, BIL, yes, where US EPA has almost more money than they know what to do with for brownfield remediation, and they're looking for sites like this. So it's in our best interest to find a developer who will partner with the BRA to make a proposal to CSX, and during that due diligence period, continue our environmental analysis, and then work with the developer to finalize the acquisition, and then work with BRA and the developer to attract more brownfields redevelopment funds to that site, remediation money. I should note that that whole area and all of downtown Brockton is a federal opportunity zone, and so there are very lucrative tax advantages to people who are investing in real estate development projects in this area. We've been able to use, our developers in this area have already been able to use opportunity zone funds that they've been able to attract investments as capital in like 93 Center Street or 19 Main Street. This would be a major investment, something that a financial institution would be looking at if they hold on to that asset for 10 years, and then when they refinance, any profit that they made on any capital gains is tax-free. So there's a tremendous opportunity to take advantage of that. And yes, before you ask, the fairgrounds is also an opportunity zone.
Thank you. So I guess I'm just, and maybe I shouldn't be, and maybe there's something in your answer that should have reassured me, and I missed it. I guess my worry is that just that we buy this property and then something environmental comes up that has to be taken care of. I know maybe we've put it in a separate entity. Maybe that gives us enough protection to shield us from it, but then,
The BRA will do its due diligence, environmental due diligence, before it closes and works with its partner, a for-profit development corporation, who would then buy the property from BRA, or may buy the property directly from CSX. It depends on their willingness to, and how much they want to participate in that process.
right, okay. I guess it just, and I think this is probably just the way it is, but it just seems bothersome to me that we're going to buy this property with known environmental issues, and hopefully we'll get some grant money to fix it up, and it won't cost us anything. We hope.
I don't want to sound cavalier, but the materials that are there are
Okay.
easy to deal with.
Okay.
It's a matter of some excavation. The hottest spots are actually nearest to the river, and it's where an old heating oil terminal was. I believe it was owned by Shell at one time. And then adjacent to it, Brockton Iron and Steel, there are some PCBs in the area, but those are easily excavated and transported off-site.
Well, so that's what I was going
It
to,
is not Love Canal.
since you brought it up, I was going to ask, do we know what materials are in there? Obviously, it sounds like
Vast
there's-
majority is coal dust.
What's that?
Coal dust
Coal dust? Okay,
from the old trains.
gotcha. And so, I guess, the oil you mentioned, the PCBs and the coal dust are easy to deal with? Okay. All right, I guess it just, I don't know, there's just something that seems odd to me about buying a property that we know has environmental issues with the hope that we'll get grant money to clean it up so that we can sell it to somebody else to do.
We haven't closed on it yet, so,
Right.
or
I-
that entity has not closed on it yet, so.
True. I understand. It's not done yet.
We are
but-
lining everything up so that we can work with the BRA to make those decisions
Okay.
before they happen.
And this may be a conversation or further conversation when that comes up, but, all right, thank you. I
Hopefully in less
appreciate-
than a year, we'll see.
Okay, that would be good, because then we can vet that part of it out fully and make sure we know what we're getting into. All right, I appreciate the information and your time. Thank you.
Counselor Lally?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the motion? Mr. Director, I more have a comment than anything else, but
Yes, sir.
this is a city, seventh largest city in the Commonwealth, but area-wise, we're not the biggest show in town. We really have, like some of my colleagues have said, we really have to, have it with a approach with a why not both, mentality. So I am happy to hear that, the progress at examining the potential for the fairgrounds is still going on.
Oh, yes.
But this is a very large property. It's right in the middle of the city. It's got a tremendous amount of potential. It's right by the train, obviously. And for this immediate funding for the care of Trout Brook, I think it's very important. We're creating, stringing parks together to, create a walkable, livable city, a walkable, livable downtown. Goes right into the village, which is very encouraging to see. This kind of linkage and investment really does bring a lot to Brockton and what we can offer. Part of the concern I think that I'm hearing is that the city is potentially the one to pick up the expense of CSX's mistakes. Which is not the most favorable situation, but at this point where CSX, was making these decisions, or whoever owned the line was making these decisions at a time where, oh, you can make it go away by dumping it into the ground was scientifically acceptable, whatever we can do to address it and improve it, whatever we can get them on, whatever the BRA can put up, obviously is important. But at some point, the role of the government is to make investments like this. We can't sell it as easily to as many interested participants to build as many, good, positive things for the city if we have the little asterisk that says, and you're responsible for a, significant financial investment for cleanup before you even get started, before we can even permit you, before you can even get approved for anything, you're going to have to buy the property and put this additional money down. So it is part of our economic encouragement, part of the city trying to, sell this and make it viable and encourage people to invest is sometimes doing things that the private sector won't do. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
You can't police for profit, or you shouldn't. It's one of those things where sometimes the government does, even if we don't do it, even if we get the money from a grant, that grant is from another level of government, which is spending money to do something that we were, that somebody else, that clean up the mess somebody else made. But this is a really encouraging step. We're moving in the right direction, and I am conscious of the fact that we have had, emotion, so I'll end it there, but I do appreciate the information, and I look forward to, more info coming to the council and going out to the public. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Councilors, this is a motion to accept a grant to pay for a feasibility study to reduce flooding on Trout Brook. May I have a motion to recommend favorably?
Motion's on the table, on the floor, sorry.
Okay, sorry, I didn't write it down. All right then, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you. And the order is recommended favorably back to the full city council. Thank you, Mr. May. Thank you, Mr. Clarkson.
Order number 6, that the city council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the grant funds in the amount of $426,000 from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development, FY23 Community Empowerment and Reinvestment Program Grant, to the Finance Department, FY 2023 Community Empowerment and Reinvestment Program Grant Fund. These grant funds will be used to support the Brockton Second Chances Project. The services that will be provided to meet the unique needs of the formerly incarcerated and court-supervised individuals are IT training, CDL training, programming, housing services for individuals suffering from substance use disorder, and case management services. Invited Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, Paul Umano, Financial Analyst.
Good evening, Mr. Clarkson.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and members of the council. Thank you. I'm happy to stand here and introduce this very exciting new program through this grant, and I want to give props and praise to a member of my team, well known to you, Paul Umano, who put this grant application together along with the team that I'll talk about for a minute. What I'd like to do is just to introduce you to the grant and the concept of it, and then if you have any specific questions about the program, I've asked Paul to be here as well. So this is a partnership between the city, the Plymouth County Sheriff's Office, and service providers named We Reach, the Gandara Center, and the 123 Sober House. 123 Sober House is based here in Brockton, and I'm sure you're well familiar with the Gandara Center. They've been providing services at the Champion Plan for some time. So this grant will provide wraparound services to recently incarcerated individuals or those in contact with the court system through supervised activities, and it will provide them pathways to employment through, as the introduction noted, through CDL training, through information technology, IT training, but also that continuum of care that you hear about, providing counseling, substance use counseling, and other services so that formerly incarcerated or at-risk individuals are not only getting the opportunities they need for jobs, but the services they need to address the issues of addiction and mental health that are so common with those that are in contact with our court system and our criminal justice system. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but again, Paul is here. This is really his effort, and I'm very proud that he undertook this with our partners who also deserve credit from the Sheriff's Office, Gandara, We Reach, and the 123 House.
Councilors, Councilor Azak.
And Councilor Rodriguez. had his hand up too. but-
Okay, I'll get him next.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Mr. Clarkson. So I just have a really quick question. Do you know approximately how many people this will actually serve? I know you named off a few of the, the agencies, but how many people are we talking about?
Good evening, Madam Chair. Good evening, members of the council. It's the first time I'm up here, so thank you for having me. So approximately, this program will serve 2 cohorts specific to the CDL and the IT training and also the career placement. So we anticipate a 15-member cohort for IT, a 15-member cohort for the career placement, and a 30-member cohort for the CDL, and also in hopes that we'll have 2 sessions of that throughout the whole grant period. And this is also an accelerated program, so we have a short amount of time to do it than a grant normally would give, so we have 6 months. So from January to June is sort of our accelerated timeframe. So all in all, we're talking over 120 participants potentially through this program, in addition to a 15-member cohort for the Gandara Center for the case management services, and also 10 clients through the 123 Sober House.
Okay, that sounds great. So, and great job on getting this. I think this is really important. How do you get these individuals? How do you find out is it through the agencies that you just mentioned, or?
Yes,
I mean,
so individuals will be referred, and also I should mention that you guys have on your lecterns so it's sort of a flyer outlining the program. We want to make sure that we get the most diverse pool of candidates and individuals for the program. So basically, the individuals will go to Jim Frazier, who is the community outreach specialist for Plymouth County and also for us. So individuals will get referred to Jim. Jim will then go through an intake process. The intake process is pretty basic. So essentially, individuals will have a query check. They will look through their RMV history, and then if they're given the okay, they will then be referred to the specific service, whether they need the CDL training that they're looking for, whether it's IT, or if the individual fits within a specific category, more of a high risk, if you will, that doesn't really fit the definition of what those organizations are looking for, then they would be referred to the Gandara Center.
okay. So this isn't just for Brockton.
So this is actually, we tailored this to be a Brockton-specific organization, so we're actually looking for Brockton residents.
So this is specifically for Brockton residents, even though it's through Plymouth
Yes.
County? Okay, great, because I mean, the reason I ask this question is we have so many programs, so much available to our residents, but I think sometimes it's just getting the information out to them so they find out about them. That's what's really important, so I'm happy to see that there is an outreach. Very good, thank you. Thank you, and thank you for being in front of us. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Councilor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Paul, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, too.
Hey, again, congratulations on the grant. I think it's highly needed in the city to deal with the issues that we deal with on a daily basis. I have 2 questions, and I try to go through the grant and try to find it. I couldn't find it, but it could be my eyes as well. Does the grant pay for the license itself? I noticed that it does pay for you to train you to take the test, but does it pay for the test itself?
It does. It does pay for the test as well.
Okay. And number 2, will you be able, is there language in the grant to provide some transportation? Because I noticed the trainings will be done in Taunton.
Yes.
Is there some transportation money to get people back and forth to Taunton?
Yes.
From
So there will
Brockton?
be transportation services provided as part of the grant, paid through the grant, to provide transportation services from the city to the Taunton location where they'll be doing the classes. Right now, we're meeting with the team to find an ideal location for that. One thought has been to use the BAT station as a potential centralized location for folks to go to meet there. They'll be transported from there to the CDL training and then transported back upon conclusion.
I noticed that the Plymouth County Sheriff was a partner in this, but is this also open for individuals who are incarcerated in places like through the federal system or some of the other state system as well? Or just, we're going to focus solely on Plymouth County?
Right now, the grant is focusing solely on Plymouth County.
So just individuals who are being released from Plymouth County?
Yes.
So what about if we have one or two individuals who were released, let's say, from the big houses, who are now in our streets looking for something to do?
That's certainly something for discussion, and we'll certainly talk about that and certainly get back to you on that. It's not something we had thought about when we developed the program, but you bring up a good point, and certainly something to consider.
Yeah, because, Plymouth County House of Correction is not the only hotel that we have that are, taking inmates in the state. So there's quite a few individuals who are probably in need. And, I see them on a daily basis looking for some sort of and the good thing about CDL training is that, and I know the chief is here, you can actually have a felony as long as it has nothing to do with, driving felonies or commercial licensing felonies and stuff, so you can still get your CDL, so as long as it's not driving felonies.
Right.
So I'm sure you're probably going to filter those individuals out, because if I have a driving felony, you're not going to put me through a CDL training for me to basically, at the end, not be able to get a CDL license.
Correct.
Right? All right, well, thank you and congratulations again. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. The order is recommended favorably back to the full city council. Thank you, gentlemen.
7, ordered that the city council authorizes the acceptance and expenditures of the total grant fund in the amount of $50,000 from the Massachusetts Office of Disability Mars Department FY23 Municipal ADA Improvement Grant to Finance Department FY23 Municipal ADA Improvement Grant Fund. These grant funds will be used to hire a consultant with EOAF grant funds to complete an ADA self-evaluation and transition plan. Project scope includes an ADA self-evaluation and transition plan encompassing all the grantees' facilities, activities, programs, and services. Invited Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, Paul Amanu, Finance.
And good evening yet again, Mr. Clarkson.
Good evening, Madam Chairman. Once again, Paul Umano from my team was instrumental in obtaining this grant, along with a team of partners from within the city, and I just want to give them credit. The Mayor's Chief of Staff, Sidney Marrow, Jim Plouffe from Public Properties, DPW Commissioner Pat Hill, who I believe is behind me, Sandy Charton from HR, Rob May, and Allison Cogliano from the Law Department all worked together. The report that will be a result of this grant is something that the Commonwealth requires for many of the grant programs that they offer, particularly those for facility rehab and renovation. The city had not yet completed that report, and so we put this team that I just mentioned together that pursued this grant, and it was approved in with some rapidity. So I'm grateful for the efforts of those folks. This is an important step forward that'll open the door for other grants. As an aside, one of the reasons we've been able to pursue some of these grant opportunities, and one of the reasons I have Paul here with me tonight to address you, is because we saw the opportunity with much of the bipartisan infrastructural law money and some of the ARPA money that's not coming directly to the city or to the county is available through federal grant programs or state programs that are funded by the federal government. So about a year ago, we actually, working with Paul as a financial analyst, shifted his duties significantly, and he has concentrated for the last year almost exclusively on monitoring and applying for and seeking grants. And you can see just tonight some of those results. And so we felt it was important that Brockton be on the leading edge of capturing a lot of that money that's out there, even beyond what we've received directly. So I'm really happy to report to you that that effort has obviously borne fruit, and this grant is one of those. Any specific questions on the grant program, I'm happy to bring Paul back up.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you, Mr. Clarkson.
Thank you.
The motion passes.
Order 8, that the city council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the sum of $73,551 from the United States Department of Justice, FY22 Massachusetts State Police Edward J. Byrne Justice Assistance Grant Program. 2, City of Brockton Police Department, FY22 Massachusetts State Police Edward J. Byrne Justice Assistance Grant Program. These grant funds will be used to fund overtime used for community policing and outreach efforts. There is no match required. Invited, Brenda Perez, Police Chief, Steve Williamson, Captain, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening, Chief Perez.
Good evening, councilors, Madam President. The JAG grant we've had for approximately since 2005. We apply yearly. And these funds have been used in many different ways. We've used it to buy necessary equipment for our offices, like tasers, radios, and vests. We've also used it for community policing and outreach, like National Night Out, the Jamboree event, different festivals throughout the city, throughout the year, the DA's summer camp, the Mayor's Youth Summit, and our car seat events. So it really has, it's versatile in how we use it, and it depends on the needs and that we see and we forecast for the year.
Thank you. Questions?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Captain Williamson.
9, ordered that the city council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $80,000 from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, FY23 Mass DEP, FY23 RDP grant, to the Department of Public Works Refuse Division, FY23 Mass DEP, FY23 RDP grant fund. These grant funds will be used by the Department of Public Works Refuse Division to pay the January, February, March, and part of April recycle cart portion of the trash bill, $23,632 per month. City will own the containers after April. Invited Pat Hill, DPW Commissioner, Patrick Sullivan, Refuse Contract Administrator, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, councilors. Congratulations, Madam President.
Thank you.
This is a grant, $80,000. It's the RDP grant, which is from Mass DEP. We get a certain amount every year for, it's basically a points. You get certain points for different activities that we do, different services that we provide, and the more services that you provide, the higher the grant. There's certain things you're allowed to spend it for. One of the things we decided to use it was the curbside recycling carts. We've been, over the last 5 years, pretty much using our RDP grant along with the grant that we originally obtained when we purchased those carts in order to defray the costs. Those carts were about $3.2 million to buy. So we're seeing the end of the road there. In April, they'll all be paid for. Title will pass over to the city. We have another 5 years left on the warranty, and they'll belong to the city finally.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, at this time, do we have any councilors' recognition? Actually, Councilor D'Agostino first, and then you, Councilor Farwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I just wanted to, and we heard from the Council on Aging tonight, but I just wanted to remind everybody of the importance of that survey. So if you were one of the people that was selected to participate in the Council on Aging Needs Survey, please make sure that you do respond and participate in that survey. You know, again, it's going to seniors in the city, age 50 plus, and very important that this is an opportunity for you to let us know, let the Council on Aging know what your needs are, so that the Council on Aging and the city can be responsive to those needs. So again, just please make sure if you're one of the ones to receive the survey that you respond. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Farwell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Hill just left, but I wanted to take a minute to call out the DPW workers. On my way here tonight, pardon me, the Water Department, I think, was working on a water main break on Crescent Street. We had one on Montello Street. We had one on North Main Street. You know, these men and women work sometimes all night long under great pressure to get the water back on. I know someone out there is going to say, well, that's what they're paid to do, but they're not paid to be there away from their family hour after hour after hour. I think they had to switch crews on one occasion because of the length of time it was taken. So, you know, we take a lot of things for granted in this city. One of them is having water and water pressure, which is not only important because we drink the water, but it's important for our hydrants and fire suppression systems. So I just would like to say thanks to the DPW, Water, Sewer, Administration, Engineering, all of the different sections. They do a great job, and they don't often get recognized, and I appreciate their work. Thank you.
Thank you. We are adjourned.